Welcome back to Story Voyage, where we take you on incredible journeys through real-life stories filled with twists and turns. Today's story is a powerful one, full of betrayal, choices, and the unexpected way life finds its own form of justice. Buckle up, because this is a story you won't want to miss. I never thought I'd find myself on Reddit sharing a story like this, but here I am, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet, trying to make sense of the emotional storm I've been through. It's strange we think we know where life is headed, we think we've got everything figured out, but in a split second, everything can change. And sometimes it's not just about what happens to you, but the choices you make when everything falls apart. Let me start from the beginning. Rachel and I had what most people would call the perfect love story. We met in high school, fell in love at a young age, and against all odds, we stayed together through all the awkward teenage years, the stress of college, the struggle of finding our way in the world as adults. We were each other's first love, best friends, and partners in everything. Everyone we knew envied our relationship. And for a long time, I thought we were one of the lucky ones who had it all. When we got married in our mid-20s, I genuinely believed we were set for life. We bought a modest house in the suburbs, had good jobs, and a strong circle of friends. I thought we'd be one of those old couples still holding hands in their 80s, watching the world pass by with contented smiles. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. As the years went by, things began to change. I don't know exactly when it started, but Rachel's career began taking up more and more of her time. She got promoted to a senior position in her company, which meant longer hours, late nights at the office, and frequent business trips. I was proud of her, of course. She'd worked hard to get where she was, and she deserved it. But the more she threw herself into her work, the more distant she became from me. At first, I tried not to take it personally. I figured this was just a rough patch, that once things settled down at work, we'd find our way back to each other. But weeks turned into months, and that distance between us only grew. The intimacy we once had, the deep connection that made us us, was slowly fading. I started noticing little things that set off alarm bells in my head. Rachel became secretive with her phone, something she never used to do. She'd take it with her everywhere, to the bathroom, to the gym, even to bed at night, keeping it face down on the nightstand. I'd catch her smiling at messages she wouldn't explain, or rushing to answer calls in the next room. Late nights at the office became more frequent, and the business trips started happening almost every other week. Whenever I asked if everything was okay between us, she'd brush it off, telling me that I was overthinking, that she was just stressed out at work. But the doubt gnawed at me, slowly eating away at my peace of mind. I wanted to trust her after all. We'd been through so much together. But that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. One night, after yet another long work day, Rachel came home much later than she'd said she would. She smelled like a mix of expensive cologne and alcohol, and something inside me just snapped. I couldn't take the suspicion anymore. While she was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I unlocked her phone. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe a few innocent texts, maybe confirmation that it was all in my head. But what I found shattered me. Her texts with a man named Sean were anything but innocent. The messages were explicit, emotional, and filled with declarations of love. There were photos, too intimate ones, that left no room for doubt. As I scrolled through the conversation, my stomach dropped. This affair hadn't just started, it had been going on for nearly a year. A year. The woman I had loved, trusted, and built a life with had been living a double life behind my back. I wish I could say that I immediately confronted her, that I demanded answers, but the truth is I was paralyzed. I just sat there staring at the screen, my world crumbling around me. How had I been so blind? How had I let this happen without even seeing the signs? I spent the next few days in a daze, going through the motions of my life, all the while knowing that my marriage was hanging by a thread. I confided in a couple of close friends, and the advice they gave me varied wildly. Some said I should confront her immediately, demand a divorce, and never look back. Others suggested counseling, trying to work things out, giving her a chance to explain herself. And then there were those who told me to get revenge, to cheat on her, to hurt her the way she had hurt me, to make her pay for what she'd done. For a brief moment, I considered it. The idea of making her feel the same pain I was feeling was tempting, I won't lie. But something in me refused to take that path. Revenge just wasn't in my nature. I didn't want to become someone I wasn't because of what she had done. I knew that if I sought revenge, I'd only be hurting myself in the long run. After days of agonizing over what to do, I made a decision I wasn't going to retaliate. I wasn't going to let her affair turn me into someone bitter and vengeful. If our marriage was truly over, I wanted to walk away with my head held high, knowing that I had taken the high road. When I finally confronted Rachel, I expected her to lie, to deny everything. But to my surprise, she didn't. The moment I mentioned Sean's name, she broke down in tears. She admitted to everything, saying that she had been unhappy for a long time, that she had made a terrible mistake, and that she never meant to hurt me. She begged for forgiveness, asked if we could try to work things out, go to therapy, rebuild what we had lost. And for a brief moment, I considered it. We had spent so much of our lives together. Could I really throw it all away? Could we find a way to move past this and rebuild the trust that had been shattered? But deep down, I knew the answer. There was no going back. The betrayal had cut too deep. Every time I'd look at her, I'd see those messages, those photos. I'd hear her laughing with Sean in my head. The trust was gone. And without trust, there's no foundation for a marriage. I told her it was over. The divorce was amicable, all things considered. Rachel seemed genuinely remorseful, and while I didn't want to destroy her, I knew I couldn't stay in a relationship where I was constantly looking over my shoulder. We split our assets fairly. She moved out, and for the first time in over a decade, I was alone. At first, being alone was terrifying. I'd never lived on my own before. Rachel had always been there, filling the house with her presence. The silence was deafening, and the loneliness hit me like a ton of bricks. But slowly, I began to adjust. I threw myself into work, started going out with friends more often, and even picked up some new hobbies to keep myself busy. I was healing, or at least I was trying to. Then, about 6 months after the divorce, something strange happened. One of our mutual friends called me out of the blue, sounding panicked. She told me that Sean, Rachel's lover, had been arrested. Apparently, he'd been involved in some serious illegal activity, embezzling money, fraud, and other financial crimes. It was all over the news, and to make matters worse, Rachel had somehow gotten caught up in it. At first, I couldn't believe it. Rachel, my ex-wife, involved in criminal activity. It sounded absurd, but as the details came out, it became clear that Sean had been using Rachel to help him with his schemes, leveraging her connections at work to launder money without her realizing it. Or at least that's what she claimed. Rachel was now under investigation, her assets were frozen, and she was facing potential jail time. The life she had built with Sean, the man she had betrayed me for, had come crashing down around her. I hadn't sought revenge, but it seemed like life had found a way to serve its own justice. I never gloated or reached out to her after everything came to light. I didn't need to. Seeing how things had unraveled was enough. Life had taken care of the revenge I had chosen not to seek. I had walked away with my dignity intact, and now Rachel was paying the price for her choices. It's strange how things work out sometimes. You think you know how life will go, but it has a way of surprising you. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't seek revenge. I would have only hurt myself in the process. Instead, life took its course, and karma did what it needed to do. As for me, I'm still healing. I've started dating again, slowly and cautiously. Trust is hard to rebuild after something like this, but I'm trying. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that walking away from revenge was the best decision I ever made. And as for Rachel, well, I hope she finds peace someday, just not in my life. Thanks for joining us on this emotional voyage. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another adventure here on Story Voyage. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, we'll see you on the next journey.